Hey, everybody. You're here for the second part of Different is Good. I'm Tricia Cook.
I'm Linda Coyle. And we also have Susan Beddington, who is traveling right now. So her voice might come
I'm
in.
Susan Beddingfield.
There you go.
Yeah, Susan.
Beddingfield. I'm sorry, Susan. See, that's part of my learning difference. I know it's Beddingfield, but I said
And
Bedding.
last time we met, something happened and you were thinking about it all week. What was it?
Right.
The fact that I know that it's not downtrodden, like I'm trotting like a horse. It was downtrodden. I know how to say that word, but our
Beddingfield.
Yeah. And so what I find is that with my learning uniqueness, that I tend to say words incorrectly.
Okay, so what were you saying, Linda?
Name,
So Linda accidentally muted you. What were you saying? I didn't mean to mute you, Linda.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I really kind of felt like God was, in control of that whole conversation anyway. And then maybe I was supposed to say downtrodden just to let people know that, you know what, we're all perfectly imperfect. And we, especially those with learning uniquenesses, tend to pronounce words incorrect. And we shouldn't stop ourselves in our tracks and feel shameful at all of, that part of our uniqueness. That we're all perfectly imperfect and we're going to say words certain ways. And so long as the lesson continues and or the message is heard, that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, so you used to be down and felt shameful for making the distinction, not being able to make the distinctions between d and t in a word, right? That are so similar sounding and made the same.
Yeah.
So what happened again with you that you all of a sudden start to accept your neuro difference and again make yourself accept yourself and know that you are good?
Yeah, I don't think that I really had
I
that.
think we're always harder on ourselves.
Yes, and I was far harder prior to knowing, that I could have a relationship with God and that God made us all unique and that it's all good, like hence the name of our podcast.
That's right, because we kind of feel bad about ourselves, like Susan was saying. I heard it in and out saying that as women, we tend to be more down on ourselves and put this pressure on ourselves. I think that's where she was going, because that's so true for myself. I was diagnosed with central auditory processing disorder and a learning disability in 1983 about. So it's like back then in 1983, they just didn't know dyslexia so well. They're just like, yeah, she doesn't do so well in reading and writing, but her IQ's average to higher. So they're like, yeah. So I grew up saying I had a learning disability, and then later on discovered, it's dyslexia. I have dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and probably undiagnosed twice exceptional, I'll be honest with you. I have an exceptional ability with science that I knew I kind of had before, but my confidence wouldn't let me go there with it. You know what I mean?
Wow. So one thing that really stands out, and last time we were chatting, was when you mentioned central processing disorder. Can you tell us a little more about what is the specific definition of, because I have a processing disorder, and that's what I didn't mention. I mentioned that I was an undiagnosed dyslexic, but I was also undiagnosed attention deficit disorder and processing disorder. So central versus processing, is it the same thing?
Yep. So it's slightly different. So I'm going to explain that. But I do want to say I've read a post this week. It says, does people not realize it's one brain, that you can have several deficits? You can have central auditory processing disorder and dyslexia. And you could possibly have one of those with ADHD, or you can have all of them. Or you could be gifted and twice exceptional at the same time. So it's like several things going on with my brain. So central auditory processing disorder, it's somebody you see a audiologist for, and they will give you special hearing aid type thing. I say it's a hearing aid because it gets rid of background noise. You always think about older people in the 80s being in a restaurant and having problems with background noise. It's like that my whole life. It can't weed out for certain frequencies are higher than others. So they would put something in your ear. Now I bought the loop. The loop was still not strong enough. So I don't have anything in my ear. I've just compensated like everything else. So with central auditory processing, it's deeper inside of the brain and it's harder to detect. So I always tell parents, think about, here's an example. I give them an example of a student I had that her daughter is a great at cheer, right? She's a cheerleader. And so they said that her coach was yelling at her saying, "You're not paying attention. Why aren't you listening?" And she had remembered I'd said it's like you can't hear because the background noise of the music playing, the stomping of the mat, the people, the coach yelling, everything, it was she was over processing it. So everything was louder. And so she couldn't focus in on one sound, just like an older person in a restaurant. Yep. So, but the dyslexic characteristics is really what still affects my writing and my speaking and my spelling, but I've overcome a lot of that because of compensation, because of God, looking at it and accepting it had a lot to do. But don't think that sometimes now when I get tired, hungry, sick, or stressed, that my characteristics won't come out, because they still will. Does that happen to you, Linda and Susan, with your daughter? When you get stressed, hungry, tired, or sick, they come out?
Absolutely. And when she is in a new situation, she definitely starts to stumble and you can see it's as if she's getting nervous, but she feels she can't find the words. And so, sometimes people don't realize what's happening, and that they just think that she's not really engaged in the conversation, but really she's searching her brain for words, and she can seem as if she's not really listening or not really
So what's happening with her daughter is that has problems with word recall. That's one of the biggest things we've got is word recall, because it takes phonological awareness to say to know, what do you hear in the first position of the word? What do you
she's
hear
actually trying very hard.
Position. So so if she can't recall what's that sound and then be able to hold that sound and get that sound out, word recall would be hard. But also, like I said, it's one brain. So she could have a deficit of language. And what's happening with that is she's probably associated certain words with colors or pictures. So think of, in the language processing area, being colors and pictures. Well, she has to look at that, think of that word's color and what did she associate it, or what was that picture that associated, and she's got to interpret it. So she's got to look at her card file of all these pictures, and so that takes time. And another thing that could be going on is social anxiousness or anxiety, because she's had this experience over and over and over again, that it's triggering her and causing it to just stop processing altogether. It's like shut down from shame. So, so Linda said last week is one of her biggest things. It's not so the dyslexic characteristics come out in her spelling and everything, just like myself. But her biggest problem was that word recall. And how can it not? We get so much pressure of people having to listen to us, and they're judging what we're saying. And what we're saying on top of that is probably outside of the box. On top of that, that it's called disparagement. And it's really soul hurting when people look down on your thoughts, feelings, opinions, and ideas that you're trying to express. So really it's this major communication breakdown. So that's why the arts of dance, drawing, drama, all of these really appeal, because it's our better gifts of being able to communicate versus speaking, writing, and reading, of course, other people's writing, so we can interpret it and give it back to others, that knowledge back to others. So it's really affects a lot. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you for summarizing that like that and sharing that, because a lot of our listeners really need to hear this, that um, you know, we all learn differently, right? And within our neuro differences and within our dyslexia, or whatever it is that we have, to understand that if we could eliminate that fear of being judged and understand that God is with us. And I'm just so pleased to know that Susan's daughter knows the Lord. And when I was a young girl, I didn't. And so I had that fear of being judged, and that immediate shutdown of like, oh, I'm not good. And oh, there's another example of how stupid I am, because I can't say what I'm trying to say, because I didn't have the diagnosis and I didn't have the Lord. I didn't have anything. I was just out there on this island all alone, like just trying to figure out life, But if she hasn't listened to last week's, where God was speaking through me and helping me just say all of the trauma that I experienced, at least some of it, I think it might really help her understand that day that I found out what my learning uniqueness was. And the minute I realized that that's all it was, that it had nothing to do with my intelligence, that I just needed help coming up with that word, and to calmly say, I don't know the word I know it, but I can't think of it. You know what I'm trying to say, and ask for help.
We know.
Yeah.
Right.
Ask for help.
Like
And just stop and just go, I'm sorry. And like it, even in our time together last week, it was like, God help me, like lean on him, like right then and there, like, oh wait, and then you lose your train of thought, because there are a little bit of uncomfortable feelings of like, oh, I'm losing my train of thought, and you go back to the old way. But when you lean on God, he helps you come back,
for sure.
It's that peace that he gives you, because our brain is wiring overload. It's overstimulated or understimulated. It's really rarely ever in equanimity, and actually that's being in calm and peace.
Are idolized.
Pray.
Right.
So, so for the listener though, can we just summarize real fast? We have Trish Cook here, Susan Beddingfield, and Linda Coyle, myself. We're all three women who God brought together, and we're so forever grateful for him putting us together, because he knows that together we're more, and that we have a neuro difference, and we are here to celebrate that and help others understand that different is good. And we have Trish summarizing her journey a little bit, and so continue. I'm sorry.
No. So last week you had talked about how something had triggered you at an adult age that brought you back to your childhood and that feeling again. I don't remember the story, but
well, thank you for, oh gosh, God, it's so good, because I wanted to say that even to this day, there's something about the hierarchy. I don't know if it's just a matter of my ingrained respect that I have, but even people that are my same age, and if they have a title that's better than my title, let me give you an example. Teacher versus principal and vice principal. Even though I have an amazing relationship with them, or anybody that has a higher position than me, here on
Well,
earth.
you didn't
I-
ever feel worthy. I mean, your
Right,
personality
my
type would take
worthiness,
you
and
to
I
that
start to
higher level, but you were keeping yourself of it because of the experience that you were having. So when you
yeah,
can
so I
overcome that, yeah.
go back to that traumatic feeling of not being, and that they're going to find out that I'm not smart. And it's so weird. And I lose, just like Susan was saying about her daughter. It's like it's like vocabulary leaves my face and my mouth. It's like I can't even think of the names of people, like, the girl that, room 22. Yeah, she said, like, what? Spit it out.
It goes back to disparagement. People had judged you at some time. And we put so much emphasis on being able to communicate and communicate well and reverberate what people are teaching us and telling us what we need to know. See, but we also have this very diverse mind that thinks on its own. It's separate from everybody. It's got problems and solutions kind of going on all the time. It's thinking outside of the box and everything. So they're not just judging the words that come, how they're produced out of your mouth. They're judging what you're saying. So it's so hard. So hard.
I've tried to make sure our home is a safe place for Katie, and her family has worked very hard. Her sisters, or us as her parents, we've tried to reassure her in those moments. Hey, take your time. It's okay. We're listening. We're here. There's no hurry. And the safer she has felt at home, she's able to tap into that with strangers and with other people.
And are you truly
Just
going to feel
knowing.
safe, Linda, with a principal who's judging you and how you're teaching kids and knowing that you have a neurodifference is not easy. Susan set a standard of safety and security and everything that needs to actually go into schools today. Teachers need to feel safe with their principals. They need to feel safe with the people above them in authority positions. So people like us can really shine. We can shine with our gifts and our outside of the box thinking, because what's happening today is not working for everybody right now.
Right. And so I do need to say, reiterate the fact that I feel very blessed in the district that I am in. I have been under the tutelage of amazing administrators, some that were a little more tough than others, but helped me grow nonetheless. And yeah, we would love to see some sort of transition within the way school systems run today. Like, what were you saying? It's been going on this way for how many years?
Well, industrial age is where schools came into play, and while parents had to go to work. So, and it was a different time, and the way that we disciplined and we treated children were different than it is today. Now, my parents were also very understanding of my neurodifference, my mom being dyslexic herself, and then my dad having a specific language impairment, and probably autism. So they were understanding, but my brother wasn't so understanding. So I still, being a brother, he would say, "You're so stupid. Everything, you're so stupid." That was his word for me. And he was brilliant, but it's not that I wasn't smart. I was extremely smart. I just learned differently. And the fact that academics were affected,
it's so you can say the word traumatic. It was traumatic that your loving brother called you stupid. I mean, we all had nicknames. I came from a family of 7, and my name was Linda, like duh, stupid, Dumbo.
Oh gosh.
Oh
no.
And I was also my nickname was None, because I think deep down inside God was trying to get me all along, because they used to say, "You tell all the time." You're like, and I was like, "No, I just want you to make good choices. I don't want you to get in trouble. That's all." But anyway, to my parents, they didn't know what to do with me. And that was another traumatic time in my life where my parents did go good for them, coming from a family of 7 and not a lot of money, they paid a psychologist to test me. And when I tell you the mistake that was made by him, it was pretty amazing that he discovered that I had a learning difference, but he let his family know that, and part of the family was his daughter. And his daughter shared with me that my dad said, yeah, your dad opened the door and he said, just put her over there. Like I was like some totally dumb kid.
Much more educated now. Everybody's much more educated on dyslexia than they were. It's still hard from understanding it because they haven't been through it nor experienced somebody in their family that maybe have had it. But they are so much more educated than on our age and our time of growing up, you know.
But I have to say that God redeemed that person, because I was driving home from work before I knew the Lord, and my parents had just recently passed away, and I was just feeling very uneasy about being an educator, and everything was super hard, like I said in the last podcast, and I had this unbelievable, overwhelming desire to tell my husband, because we were commuting together at that point, I know that we normally go home and chop vegetables. I know that our routine is this, but you got to drop me off right now at the gym. I just got to go. And so he did. He dropped me off. And who did I run into but my childhood psychologist? And I said, oh my gosh, Mr. Stewart, it's me. And he said, so it's great to see you. And I said, I have to ask you something. I said, you tested me years ago. I said, today, would it be considered dyslexia? He said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he also let me know that my IQ was high. And I was like, are you just saying that to build up my self-esteem? Because I needed to know that right now. And he goes, no, here's the bell curve, like that you're over here. And I was like, oh, and then my husband walked in and he goes, get over here. I said, he's telling me I'm smart. And he's like, I've been saying that for years. Like, when you're going to listen? I'm like, I just don't believe it, but I felt like God made my husband veer off, pull over, drop me off. And because he knew I needed to run into him and hear this. And so it gave him an opportunity to make me realize that because I didn't hear that from him, that you're okay, you're a smart little girl. Instead, his daughter, who's a comedian and super funny, she said it to be funny, but she didn't realize how it landed on me and how it just made me feel like, oh gosh, she's right, I am stupid. She didn't realize
know this from Susan.
that adversely affected me for so many years.
Earlier, that dyslexia and other neurodifferences has nothing to do about your intelligence. You're actually average to higher IQ. Now, my mom would say, you're smart. You are so smart, and I didn't believe it. Now I believe that I am smart. Now, Susan, is it the same for your daughter? Did she feel like she wasn't smart and then came to the point to realize, hey, I am smart. I just learned differently? Did that happen?
Yes, absolutely. She had a moment and actually in Sunday school where she was writing on a piece of paper, just an answer, just a casual writing prompt that the teacher gave them. And the girl sitting next to her reached over and corrected her spelling. And, it just broke Katie's heart. She just was so embarrassed. And that's the day she came out and asked me after church. She said, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Spell and read like my friends. What's wrong with me? And that was a moment that hit her. And it took time, because at home, we had always we're doing our best to lift her up, seeing her brilliance, kind of pressure from outside and her peer group. That was a hard moment. And I realized then that we needed to get her a diagnosis, something that she could help herself put into words more of what's happening to her. Does that make sense?
Total sense. And a lot of parents are seeking that today for their children.
And that gave her some freedom to realize that, you know, there are tools and there is a name for, you know, her differences. There's a name for it. But it took time for her to realize, you know, eventually she did look at me and say, you know, wow, forgot how smart I was for a while there.
Yeah.
And I remember the day she said that too. And I said, oh, good. Wow, I'm glad you remember. You know, it was a particular math concept that we were working on, and you know, she was able to really explain it to me. And I said, you know, wow, Katie, you know, that was awesome. And she said, wow, I forgot for a while how smart I was, and you know,
I want to talk about
it's good to feel smart again.
Oh yeah, I'd like to talk about it for a second about having neurodifference, including neurodiversity and thinking different. They say that Einstein was had dyslexia and a neurodiversity, probably autism. But what I've learned about Einstein is he took his one interest area, and that being physics. He took that one interest area and he took it further, farther, faster, better than anybody on this planet with his theory of relativity, right? So he went by his interests to learn and take this interest further, faster, better again. But they said that he'd ask him, what's a simple science term? And he didn't know the answer to it. See, I want to go into the fact that we're interest-based learners, that we have these particular interests. Mine happens to be education, because I really wanted to heal and look at this, right? Obviously, because most people want to go far away from it as they can, right? So I research, but you asked me something about somebody down the street, what kind of car they have, or I'm not just going to simple example. I have no idea. You know, like it's common knowledge to everybody else what kind of car they have. I'm just giving an example. So I wish in education that we could see where we take their interest, we let them do their own independent research on it, see how far they can take it, while giving them tools of intervention and calm. And then they present that research, whatever medium they choose, whether it be something with the arts, poetry, dance, acting out, whatever they do, since they've done all that research on whatever their interest area is. So you're developing their interest and their gift at the same time, you know, and it's just kind of facilitated by the adult. They're just facilitating answering their questions, but they're not going to have many questions. I tell you that right now. They're more interested in finding out the whys. I call it the whys of dyslexia. Why is this happening? That they're going to be ready for what you want to teach them when their mind says they're ready for it and they're done with their research on their own. So it's like we're just determined to teach them to learn the same way everybody else learns.
And Tricia, I think that if we interviewed, you know, a panel of people, most people, whether neurodivergent or not, would say, I don't remember a thing I was taught. So why not allow education to change in a way that that provides opportunities for people to learn in a unique way, right, based on their interests, so that they can hold on to something that's going to take them further in life, and also possibly put them in a position to be doing what they were made for, like
that's it. I feel like my purpose was to help in education, and that if somebody tried to keep on hurting my self-esteem and that I'd forget my whole purpose, what my whole purpose was, because you didn't go by the way that my brain works, my mind works. You went by the way that people are saying that you're supposed to be teaching me and I'm supposed to be meeting these standards.
Right.
So,
Yeah, started shutting down.
but I think you could help explore their interest on a common basis so you can expand their interest to make sure they can get it narrowed down to the exact interest. Don't get me wrong about that.
So for
Introduce them,
the,
but they're gonna pretty much know what it is. We have this strong mind and will anyway, so I don't
for
know how
the,
much.
should
Yeah.
we summarize just real quick? So we have Trish Cook here, Susan Beddingfield, and myself, Linda Coyle. We are three women that have come together to share what it's like. Susan has a daughter with dyslexia, and Trish and I have dyslexia with a plethora of other learning uniquenesses. And we're here to celebrate how we have overcome a lot of this, and how God is speaking to us, and how He wants us to help others who struggle in this regard, in this way. And we're just trying to get the word out there that they are not alone, that they're not the only people that feel this way, that we're women who feel the need to really share what our experiences have been, and hope that we can help others through that. And again, God is just sharing with us what He wants us to do next. And right now, we're just feeling like it starts at the top, that somehow education is going this way, and we're just feeling like somewhere along the line it needs to change, where teachers feel this autonomy in the classroom. They don't have this fear-based running of the classroom, that I got this paperwork due, and I'm going to be observed, and then this is happening and that is happening, and I feel overwhelmed, I'm exhausted. And it just shouldn't be that way, because that trickles down to the kids, and then the kids feel this anxiety in the classroom and no learning's going on. So anyway, this is just a conversational, podcast that we're doing, just whatever comes up. And right now we're really just focusing mostly on Trish and her journey. I don't know how much time we have left, but I feel like we're going to probably continue next week with you, because you've not mentioned everything.
All right. I prefer the conversation anyway, because you put too much, like I said, my dyslexia characteristics come out when I'm tired, hungry, stressed, or sick. And so to relieve the stress, the conversation is so much better for me. So so I wanted to say that the biggest part of my speaking, I don't know, is we're jumping around a lot, but I know there's a little bit of something anybody that's listening can take, just one little part. But when I speak, sometimes I do fusions, so that I'm taking the word I'm saying presently and infusing it with the words that are coming next. So I want to make people aware that what fusion is. So you'll hear me do it sometimes, and I cannot control, but it's when my mind starts to move ahead of the speaking mechanism. So it's not in sync. It's so when they're not in sync together, it's usually when I'm sick, hungry, tired, or stressed. So people would hear, there's a lot of opportunities to speak out in school and collaborate. And so they'd hear me doing these fusions. And so once I did one fusion, guess what happened to the rest of the words behind it? They started to stumble and stutter over each other, because I'm realizing that everybody's hearing me do this. So it brings me to a point, and I remember what it was last week that triggered me. And it was an adult situation where I was in a work situation, and we were coming up with state standards for a whole grade level of students. And so they asked me my opinion on something, and they were all looking at me, and I know what I was saying wasn't following along what they were conversing about. It was what I already had in my mind, because I wasn't speaking up the whole time because I've developed to become an introvert because of my inability to speak well. So, so they said, Tricia, won't you speak? And so here we go. All that started happening that I just explained. And they all started giggling and laughing at me, adults. So,
Oh gosh.
yeah, adults have to breathe because it's triggering some of those feelings of anger and shame again. So hold on, it's my heart's starting to race. I'm starting to feel it physically. So let me,
Yeah, understandably so.
yeah.
It's hard.
And it reminded me of my childhood, brought me right back there again when, you know, there were collaborative opportunities in the classroom. So I don't believe I was even, actually I was, I've taken the DISC personality test. I am people oriented, reclusive, and then next time people oriented again, outgoing. So that introvertedness of my personality really set in, and but I didn't want it because the other part of me is to be outspoken and to speak about my research, things that I've read. So I'm really pushing through, and I know Linda is too. And how is your daughter? Is she like pushing through all of the neuro differences in that way? Because it meant a lot to me to be able to speak in front of people and speak well.
She is. She's finding words with her employer and with the people that she works with to explain to them, you know, why she does things certain ways or the pace that she's working at. You know, if they want her to go faster, she helps them understand, you know, at what point that would be detrimental. To try to push her to go faster might not always be efficiency.
So
So.
Susan, how old is she?
Oh, Katie is 27.
Okay.
But she was in a safe, supportive home that taught her how to advocate for herself. And there's so many adults our age who nobody raised us up to advocate or speak for ourselves to say, hey, I'm processing this right now. Let me get back with you as soon as I got what you're asking me to do. You know, this task that you're asking me to do. I'd love to have said that at her age,
Yeah.
you know?
It-
So
this
didn't have that.
This reminds me of just last year, I was on a committee for social emotional learning, something that's near and dear to my heart. I stepped down from the committee. Why? Because,
Oh,
well, no, well, it's actually not happening this year due to
okay.
something happened. And God probably would have said, go and get over yourself. But it was a situation where as colleagues, we would come together and we would discuss what the task was. Now, in front of everybody, we were all working. And because I process slower, like, let's read this article and break it apart and I was like, oh my, and anxiety just started to like take over, and I couldn't think, and I couldn't remember how to grab this document and put it there. And I was like anxiety ridden with my colleagues that are like my friends. It was so crazy. So it got to a point where I would break off into even a smaller group with this young, sweet girl who was just super fast and you're very efficient.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'll just do it. And I was like, well, I need to like buy you a gift certificate or give you money because I feel like I'm stealing right now because I'm just sitting here talking to you
And
like
you're feeling guilt and feeling shame,
yes.
adding
I
shame,
don't
not necessarily.
Did
right?
you all ever have a code word or think to have
Nope.
a code word for when you felt that way? Katie, when she was growing up and I began to realize that in pressures as a homeschool mom, I would start to hurry and rush her, or, you know, so, and she, and, you know, being human and so inadequate myself at times, you know, I would make her feel bad, even though I wasn't meaning to or whatever. I was just a rushed parent. And so we had a code word that she would say when she couldn't put all the words to it. She just knew she was feeling embarrassed or
I love that.
made to feel less, you know. And I told her, I never ever want to make you feel that way, but I understand, you know, it's hard to explain it when it's happening in that moment. So just say peanut butter and I'll know all that that means. You know, just say, Mom, peanut butter, and you know, and I'll understand
And
all
again,
that is
Katie is
happening.
so blessed to have you as a mother to help
Oh,
her
thank you.
process and work through that. And in defense of my family, they just didn't know.
Yeah, mine didn't just know these little things because they still were figuring out what was going on. Because there's so many things going on with our learning that affected every part of our communication.
I mean, I'm not really sure when there was this. The reason my parents sent me was because I was extremely shy. I didn't talk like really much. And then it was like a switch went off and I just became I was voted friendliest of my senior class. I mean, go figure. So I don't know where that switch happened and what happened and why I ended up being super friendly. I know a lot of times I would be like the class clown, the typical class clown and the silly girl, because I didn't want people to find out that I was neurodifferent or stupid. At that point, I thought I was stupid. I didn't want people to figure it out. So I would just like joke around and, you know,
Very
uh,
common. Very common.
Right.
and cheat and cheat.
I cheated. Yep. I cheated. I put it into my biography because I had to get it out. I had to get out that shame that I had cheated all throughout high school. Didn't have an opportunity in college so much because I guess there's so many in the class. But in high school, I knew who to depend on to get what I needed. But
Yeah.
that was a necessity for me to get by. I felt because my needs weren't being met. It's not
But we
like
were
I
very
wanted to
creative in
cheat.
that. We were very creative and we had
Yeah.
social skills that allowed us to ask
Yep.
for help in a very
Yep.
convoluted way, but we did it.
Yes.
And that was our
Mhm.
tenacity and our survival skills.
That's right. Survivors. Absolutely.
You know that game football used to take the paper and flick it.
Mhm.
So I remember one time it was an algebra test because I have dyscalculia also, and there was a cute football player 2 rows behind me who got all A's, and I'd kind of flirt with him or whatever and say, "Send me the answers," and he'd do it into the little football, and the football thing would come to me. But problem solution, there you go. You know, I had a problem. Nobody was meeting my needs. Nobody was helping me with the math, or could they? Probably. I talk about number. Guess it's not coming to me. Conservation of number.
Dyscalculia.
Yeah. Anyway, so I didn't have a concept of number. I still don't have a concept of number. So that would be hard to have taught me anyway. But anyway, math. So I've not conquered math. I've conquered reading and spelling and everything, but not math. But so it is almost time to go, ladies. I love our raw conversation. I didn't talk so much about how God has saved me from all the struggle that I've had and how I want to help the weak and weary with their learning struggles. But all I can say is He is good. It all had to happen. All of these struggles in my life that we're going to talk more about next week, I guess. It sounds like Linda's like, you didn't get to say all your traumas of learning that happened, but she's
Yeah.
right about that. But so all I could say, it all had to happen to get me where I am, to get that purpose of helping others. So I'm very thankful for it, but it took time.
Yeah.
It took a process. It took a lot of prayer, a lot of devotion of letting Him heal those traumas inside of me. And I'm thinking He is so good for all of us, not just me. So
And
Absolutely.
I mean, we're still healing. We still have
Yes.
some layers that need to be peeled back. But
Absolutely.
he's always working.
the
I'm
old
very
man
thankful
and
for
the new man. So a new
yeah.
woman and an old woman. This is peeling off that trauma. I'm having to go to the Word daily to still work it out. So
Yeah. Well, I'm very thankful for the two of you and the work that God's doing in your life. And Tricia, that you shared so much today. You got to share, and I look forward to hearing more from both of you. And it's been a very good time. Good time.
Yeah, very good. Bye,
Thank you.
guys. Everybody have a good Sunday.
All right, you too.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
And all your travels with your daughter and her friends.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Okay, so I did download it. Ah,